AskReddit by Darkest Moose 538. What do you believe is the hardest aspect in your language or culture for people to learn? The fact that the language we use in learning or any formal course is very different than the language we speak every day. You will learn Arabic for like 5 or 6 years and finally being able to speak it, you will be surprised that no one is using it in real life, but we all understand it. So the Arabic learned is not the same as spoken Arabic? Hungarian, my first language, is quite difficult to master, to begin with. But the hardest aspect I would say is that we use suffixes instead of prepositions. How do you mean? I'm genuinely curious how that works. Intonations. For Mandarin Chinese, it's easy enough, there are only 4, excluding the soft tone, and they are all quite distinct from each other. Then in Cantonese, there are 6, 4 flat tones at different pitches, and 2 rising tones also at different pitches. Hokkien has 7, used to have 8 I believe, but 2 of the tones have somewhat merged I think. Fuzhou has 7. Then there's this wonderful thing called tonal sandy, which exists in all of these languages, but on different levels, a primer, of sorts. https://yahoo.be/zit-b4inch4sip5lx6as(4) Fuzhou, https://en.m.wiki.org/wiki/fuzhou_dialect has even more complicated tonal sandy, because fu, that's why. French is one of the languages with the most spelling grammar rules. They even plan to change the rules to simplify it. 26 letters in the alphabet, but you only pronounce 14 of them. When we offer you our food sometimes, for example lunch, 1 serving size, at work, we don't really mean it as an offer but just as a gesture to be polite. You're supposed to decline the offer. That pairs nicely with my culture of declining anything that may be a hassle for someone. Want some water? No. I don't want you to have to go all the way to the kitchen and get a cup and fill it with water and then come all the way back here. I'd rather die of thirst. Pronunciation of G sounds and vowel composites like OU, EU, IJ, UI and DI. And sentence structure. Maybe that we also use a lot of composite words, but I'd argue Germans are even worse with this. Don't forget SCH and the use of articles that don't really follow any rules, as opposed to, for example, French that has clear feminine masculine articles. Learning English is a bitch for a lot of people, especially British English. So many words have multiple different meanings based on context and yet are all spelled the same. Then there is slang. If you didn't grow up in the UK, then slang will be a surprise to you, considering the variation of slang based on age. My parents are in their 50s and I use slang around them that they are used to, but when I use the same around my friends, all in late 20s, they haven't got a clue what I'm saying. English is my first language, and I speak with a lot of British or Australian people in my job when I work morning shifts. I'll be honest, sometimes they say words and I'm left like, what? I needed to know a specific time once and the guy said 4:30. That's it. 4:30. I was left like 4:30 or 3:30? Do you mean 4:30 or that you are halfway to 4? I am gonna say das. I can see it being especially hard to learn for English speaking people because it is so different. And then the different word endings and articles depending on which one of the 4 cases you reusing XD. Is that German? I have heard horror stories about the German there. My grandmother is German, but she never learned past when she was 6 years old, so she isn't fluent. But I once looked into maybe learning it and it was so hard. French, gendering things, and the fact that we need to gender and associate plural the adjective to, level, which is blues, le cami in blue. the blue cars, the blue truck. You need to add an E to feminine stuff and also an S to mark the plural. Gendered nouns is the most pointless feature of any language on earth. Navigating a supermarket without spontaneously buying everything in the snack aisle requires a level of self-control that even the most disciplined scholars can't always master. Our grammar. In Czech language it's a lot weird grammar rules, but I have to say, the pronunciation is very difficult and even Czech kids struggle with it a lot. Where to use masculine and feminine prefix or suffix. Idioms and colloquial expressions can be quite challenging for learners, as they often have unique meanings that aren't immediately obvious from the words themselves. Additionally, mastering the nuances of informal language and cultural context can take time and practice. Gender. Everything is gendered. Plane is masculine. Car is feminine. Yeah, needing to know the gender of my washing machine is something special. In English, I'd say all the stupid arbitrary conflicting phonetic rules that you have to just remember. It's like the whole thing was built out of spare parts of other languages and they all just got kinda crammed in there with duct tape, so it's an inconsistent mess. My youngest just recently learned to read and we're still having to shrug and agree with her when she complains, but that word doesn't even make sense. For example, uff is fun to explain that it can be pronounced at least 5 different ways and none of them follow normal phonetics. Do, ought, through, rough, plow, ugh. And then women is pronounced women, but woman is pronounced woman. Why? Because there are rules when it comes to my language, but it doesn't matter since there are much more exceptions to those rules. Also, pronunciation is really difficult for foreigners. Guess the language, lol. French? Polish? Lots of languages have rule and exception issues, but those are some challenging ones, I think. Suppose that you have to say I heard that you are one of those from Paris in Turkish. You have to do it in one word with various suffixes in correct form and order. Paris liliden misin broken down as Paris lileden misin. English. How is there not an R in kernel? Kernel is a mix of Italian, French and Spanish. Italy spelled it colonnello. France changed it to coronel. Spain pronounced it kernel, not sure how it was spelled. Ultimately the spelling became a mismatch of the French and Italian spellings, while maintaining the Spanish pronunciation. Cantonese has like 20 tones, I'm not sure, and butchering the pronunciation of a single word can change the meaning of the sentence completely. The gender of objets. Armchair is a guy while chair is a girl. Washing machine is a girl while dishwasher is a guy. Sorry, I didn't make the rules. Everything. I would say the hardest aspect of Shona is plural words, just because the way to make a word plural isn't like English where you usually just add an S and it changes depending on which class a noun belongs to. For example, person in Shona is munhu, but then when plural it becomes vanhu, whereas I in Shona is zizo, and when it becomes I's, it's mazizo. Homophones in English. Surprisingly, when to use your and your.